Welcome to the Security Speakeasy Show, where we talk about all things network security. Today, we are going to talk about performance testing. In previous episodes, we already discussed the perils of trusting datasheets for sizing an environment. If datasheets come with these caveats, what is a better way to assess performance? My name is Marcel Hoffman, and I'm on the product management team at Palo Alto Networks. Joining me today is Samaresh Neer, the product line manager who's responsible for our third-party test initiatives. Samaresh and we joined about the same time, and we've been with Palo Alto Networks now for more than 5 years. Samaresh, welcome to the show. Just to recap, why can't we trust the data sheet? If it says the appliance, if it's a hardware or virtual appliance, doesn't matter. If it says it can do 10 gigabits per second with certain functions enabled, then why can't I trust this information for buying my next firewall?
Thank you, Marcel, for having me. It's always great to talk with you and happy to be on this series. That's a great question to start with, Marcel, and I'm sure that's one of the questions that many of our customers face. The question can be split into two parts. Firstly, what is the performance that the customer expects to see on the network? Now, every network is differently blended with different types of application traffic and their ratios. No two networks can have exactly the same type of traffic. Now, there are some common trends that can be observed between some deployments based on the industry verticals, where in the network where the firewalls are deployed, understanding the deployment and assessing them is important. Next question is, what is the ability of the firewall to process the traffic? The throughput of the firewall hugely varies based on the ability of the firewalls to process them. But more importantly, how is the firewall architected? We have seen some firewalls that work incredibly fast at layer 4 level, but their performance drops significantly when the performance of any application processing is started or if any security services are enabled. Now, datasheet can focus on layer 4 speeds with no services enabled, often mislead the customers. They are correct based on how they're tested, but the performance stated may not be observed in the real world. The part of the problem also is that there is no common way in which all the vendors test their products. As discussed earlier, the vendors test based on what could produce the best results for them. The net result is that the customers are often not able to compare the competing solutions.
Okay, thank you, Samaresh. So what is our response to the problem? How can a customer right-size a firewall? And the other question is, how do we test our own firewalls for this?
Now, as we talked earlier, we commonly see the next generation firewalls based on layer 4 performance. That clearly won't be useful for a customer. As such, we don't believe that layer 4 performance is the right parameter to be used for sizing a firewall. We focus on performance of our firewalls with security processing enabled along with application identification. In addition to our in-house testing, we work with various third-party test houses in providing independent test results. Now, third-party testing helps us to keep honest and validate if our datasheet results are accurate. Now, just to be clear, the testing done by third parties may be a little bit different than what we have in our own datasheets as well. But generally, they are more closer to our datasheets than when the same test is performed on competing devices.
So how can we objectively assess these third-party reports? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, so there are a few questions to consider when we look at any third-party reports. The most important is, does the test methodology simulate real-world situations or customer networks? Then, does the report have information about the configurations on both the test tool and the device being tested? Or are they willing to provide that information on request? Third thing is that is important is, what is the reputation of the test house and how transparent are they when they do the test? Lastly, third-party reports help to a large extent when a detailed POC for a specific deployment is not an option. So we still encourage customers to run through the POC when possible.
Okay, thank you for your insights, Samaresh. I understand now how and why third-party test reports can be more objectives than vendor data sheets. And because we work closely together on these test initiatives, for me personally, it was also very surprising to see how large the impact of the traffic mix and other traffic parameters is on the performance of a firewall. So these third-party test reports will introduce more transparency into how these performance numbers have been measured and how this can be applied to our customers' environments. If you like today's episode, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, visit paloaltonetworks.com, and check out the description for links to the third-party test reports which we discussed today, and see you in the next episode.